Hello. Welcome back to the Chats and Chapters podcast. Just had to make sure I was recording because you never know when you're jumping back into things. Welcome back. Hello. Today, I want to chat about a few things that I have shared on my newsletter. So if you aren't on the monthly story newsletter, you can go ahead and hop on that. It'll be in the description below or in the show notes, depending on whether you're listening on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. So go ahead and jump on that. But today I did want to jump in and share a little bit of some of the stuff that I have been sharing in there. Before we get started, I did want to mention an opportunity for you or someone you know, if you are not at this current stage at the moment. I am relaunching my editing course for authors. You have seen it. I have made videos about it. I have podcast episodes. I've been talking about it. It is taking me a bit longer than I initially planned, but that's a good thing because I am so excited with the direction this is going, with the upgrades I'm doing. So, formerly known as Editing Excellence, it is being upgraded, redone, and becoming the revision roadmap. I am so excited. I have slowly been chipping away on the new structure, resources, and delivery. And so it is taking me a little bit of time, but that is where this opportunity comes in. If you or someone you know is currently going through revisions, I am opening up 3 spots for a 30-minute call for you or a friend of yours to receive feedback on how to approach revisions for your story and what you are personally struggling with. And it will allow me to steer the course in a direction that will provide the most value. If you would like to talk about revisions, or if you have a favorite writer friend, author friend, and they're going through revisions and maybe they're struggling with their first book or their last set of revisions was really difficult, please send me an email or you can send me a DM on TikTok. I will say I'm not in my DMs as much on TikTok. I'm way more organized and keep up with my emails better. So please respond if you're interested or if you know someone that is interested via email, and we can set up a time to chat. Jumping into what I have been sharing in the newsletter. If you didn't know, I started a monthly newsletter, so I'm not in your inbox all the time. I'm not doing anything crazy. It is the monthly story newsletter because everything here at Chats and Chapters is for the stories. The first thing that I go through is I typically, for the S in story, we talk about like structure or a summary of something because I'm always learning. So if I've recently read something and I want to share it, I think it will help you while you're writing, while you're going through revisions, anything throughout the writing, publishing, author process. I share that. And then the T, I've been giving my thoughts. So in January, I read the first chapter of a book and it was literally the worst first chapter I've ever read. My husband bought it for me from Target one day. He saw it and he was like, yeah, I thought maybe like you'd be interested. And it does sound interesting. I just am so confused on how this first chapter, I would never dream to have a conversation like this or have someone talk to me the way it was. Just the weirdest first chapter. Anyways, the O is for opportunity. And then the R is either something that I've read that I think you should read or resources that I use that I really think you could be able to use. And then Y is for YouTube so that I can share any YouTube videos that I have within that month. That is the monthly story newsletter. Once again, if you would like to join, you can either in the description or in the show notes below. So for structure, I love talking about structure. I love structure. I love it in stories. I love it in my life. I love it in my planner. I love it on my calendar. I love structure everywhere. Okay. I really think that we could use a bit more structure in our lives. And that's a hill I will die on. Now, I know a lot of people hear structure and they think, it's so constricting. It doesn't allow my creativity to flow. I can't be confined to an outline, blah, blah, blah. And like, maybe that really is the way that you write. And that's okay. That's okay. I work with a lot of authors and they don't sit down and write an outline. They have a story and they write the story and it is amazing, but it always comes back to structure. During editing, during revision, how is it flowing? And that is important. So whether you think about it first or you think about it second or you think about it at both times, you're still going to have to think about it no matter what. So with stories and almost anything else in life, it always comes back to the structure and systems that you have in place. There is a reason why there are 300 million types of story structures. We as humans like to be able to predict how things are going to go. Even with plot twists, we know there is most likely going to be a plot twist in a movie, in a book, in a play, etc. That is the structure, and we might be shocked by what it is. If it is done well, we're obviously shocked. That is the point of a plot twist. But we aren't shocked that the plot twist exists because that is the structure. My point is that no matter how you go about writing your stories, they will need to follow a structure readers are familiar with and delivers what you promise them on page 1. Whether you outline or not, at some point, you are going to have to pay attention to the structure of your story and make sure that it flows the way that we expect most stories to flow. And I also brought up in my newsletter to everyone, I was like, I also want you to think about the structure outside of your story. It's February. So if you haven't had the time to write as much as you wanted to this year, or read as much, or bake as much, or go on walks as much, or whatever, if you haven't been able to do as much as you wanted to, it might be a good idea to sit down and look at the structure of your weeks. The structure of your week. When can you get writing in? When can you get baking in? First, obviously put your work in there, put your appointments in there, put all of your absolutely must-haves, anything that you've already agreed to, those need to go in there. When you go to the gym, all of that kind of stuff that needs to be done weekly goes into this structured week. But then you'll be able to see some free time for you to be able to do what you want to do. And it sounds like it would be really, really time consuming and a pain in the butt and all of those good things. And it might be in the beginning. It really might be in the beginning. Just like outlining your first book is going to take you longer than outlining your 6th book because you have those reps under your belt. You understand how it is. You know what works for you. In the beginning, you're still kind of working it out. Like, yeah, you can go based off of something else. You can go based off a structure like we're talking about. That's great. But the way you go about it and you actually, like whether you do the macro part first or the micro part first, like how you specifically tackle it, how it works best for you is going to be different on your first book compared to your 6th book. Because again, you have those reps, you know what works for you. You've done this before. It's not your first time. Following that more structured line of thinking to kind of give you that little bit of flexibility where possible, I recently cracked open the Story Grid book by Sean Coyne, and I have seen the Story Grid stuff. I find it interesting. I love looking at all of the different structures and the different ways you can go about writing because, like I said, there's like 3 million structures, but there's a reason that so many of them overlap. So many of them follow the same structure of structuring, okay? And there's a reason that is, it's universally acceptable. That's what we're used to. That's what has been used for so long. And one section in particular of this book I found really interesting, just the way it kind of laid everything out. So it's the 5 commandments of storytelling. And like everything, this follows the basic global structure, but he uses a few different terms. So I shared this in the newsletter just in case, the usual story structure doesn't really resonate with you. Maybe this will. And I also think that it is important when you're looking at structure within your story as yes, to think about it on the grand scale. You want to look at the whole story, but I also challenge you to think about these as guides for your beats, your scenes, your chapters on a smaller scale as well. So the first one is the inciting incident, which we all know it's a thing that kicks off the whole story. It's a causal or coincidental inciting incident. So a causal inciting incident is a result of an active choice. So a husband leaves his wife, which causes, this, that, or the other to happen. A coincidental inciting incident is something unexpected or accidental, like you would expect, obviously, like a car wreck or taking the wrong purse from a restaurant. That is the inciting incident. First thing kicks off the story. The progressive complication. Now, this is your typical moving the story forward. You never want the story to go backwards. And you want to make it move forward with active and revelatory turning points. So he talks about active turning points happen with character actions. So the character called their ex when they're drunk at the bar. The character has to escape a building that is on fire. They have to do something to move the story forward. Something is happening. They have to react. There is action happening. The revelatory turning points are when there is a revelation. Duh. Okay, stick with me. So Nick Carraway realizing that Gatsby is closely tied to organized crime, or realizing, your sister has been the villain the whole time. Like something dawns on them, and that is going to change how they then show up for the rest of the story. That is going to change how they react to that character, that situation, these other characters, because of that situation, pushing the story forward, whether it's through realizing things or action. The third step of this structure is the crisis. So this is the time the protagonist must make a decision, and it is the best bad decision or the irreconcilable goods crisis. This is what I was saying. I was like, it follows the same thing, but he uses different words, different descriptors. And I just thought it was interesting and wanted to share just in case this strikes home. This gives you that aha moment because maybe the original one doesn't. So the best bad choice is where both choices are bad, obviously, and the character has to pick the one that they can live with. So they either come clean about an affair and their life falls apart, of course, because obviously, I know some people it doesn't happen, but like not in my life. So they either come clean about the affair and their life falls apart, or they lie and maybe they get away with it. So those are both bad decisions because obviously if you lie, there's always a chance that they're going to find out and your life's going to crumble anyways. So you pick one or the other, or you fight the guy who could, literally kill you, or you feel like a coward for the rest of your life. Both of those are pretty bad. Like you don't want to live feeling like a coward forever, but you also don't really want to fight the guy because then you could die. So like, do you get what I'm saying? So the irreconcilable goods crisis, both are good. Both of the decisions that you could make are good technically, but they cannot coexist. Does the character hire a full-time nanny so that, having a kid doesn't impact their career? Or do they change up their career so they can do school drop-off and pick up and be there for dinner and baseball games or ballet or whatever? So both have good aspects, but you can't have both of these exact scenarios at the same time. You have to pick one good or the other good, and that is going to shift the direction of the story. That's going to shift the direction of the character, what they learn, how they grow, how they, retire, what they think about in their last, decade. Did they feel fulfilled based on their career, or did they feel fulfilled based on being there for their child? Then we get to the climax. So the climax is the active answer to the crisis. So this reveals who the character is and not who they say they are. So you're going to have climaxes throughout your story as the characters go through challenges. They're met with crises and they must make a decision. So do they stay or do they go? I just sang that song in my head. That was to the tune. They stay here too. Okay. Anyways, so you're going to have, like I was saying, if you look at the whole thing, like your whole story, you want to have the structure, the arc of everything. It goes up, things get more complicated. You have the climax and then the resolution, obviously. But as I've said before on this, you go through mini arcs and many like smaller climaxes, and they progressively get higher and higher and higher and bigger until you get the main one. And then that is how the story resolves. So your characters are making decisions the whole story, But there is the one that is life or death. It's the main moment, what we have been waiting for, that shows their true character. It shows their full growth from everything that they have gone through throughout the entire story. And then, of course, we get to the resolution. This is the opportunity you give your readers to process the story. And there are many opportunities throughout the whole story that you should be giving your readers to process what happened. So like I said, you have something happen, your character has to react, they have an epiphany, however that happens, there's a climax, and then within that scene, that chapter, that beat, it falls off. Not like literally falls off, but like the tension drops and your readers and your characters are then processing what is happening, and then you ramp it back up. And that continually happens throughout the entire story. So if you zoom out on your story, you see one big arc. And if you zoom in, you see a lot of smaller arcs that should progressively get bigger as the story continues and the stakes and tension build. The resolution of the beats, scenes, chapters, like I was saying, are the characters breathing, regrouping. Your characters go and have a pint of ale. They're laughing, they're processing that they just fought off a demon, or they just rode a dragon, or like whatever. The resolution of the whole story provides a picture of what the future holds for the characters. That way your readers can picture it. They know what's going to happen. They can get a sense of the next steps. Is your dad that decided he was going to change his whole career and not hire the nanny, and he's going to be there? Like, we know based on that big decision and him making breakfast for his kid in the epilogue, a year later, that he's going to continue being there for his kid. That is a decision that he made. We as readers know that. That is the goal. It is all laid out and beautiful, and we get that resolution. So I hope that this was helpful. This is just a sneak peek of what I write in my newsletters every month. Like I said, if you would like to join the newsletter, please do that at the link below. I will have it in the show notes or in the descriptions. Also, if you would like to chat with me, if you're in the middle of revisions and you want a 30-minute chat to get some help, a little bit of guidance, and then help me steer my course in the direction that will provide the most value going forward, I would really appreciate it. I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out, send me an email. It's going to be Caitlin, Caitlyn. I'm a YN girly at chatsandchaptersllc.com, and I would love to chat with you. Until next time, I'll see you next time.